I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Jumpy and Ghosty.
The Moth, Death Angel.
Yes, this is for Christine.
Oh, hey, Christine.
Yeah.
How are you? We're good friends. This is the Moth, Death Angel. For time and topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. Mm-hmm. And look, there's multiple ways to get your song reviewed. One way is to $1 at the gate, get you in a Patreon alliance. You get hooked up with a pretty cool community within the community, like-minded people. So you got a power metal group. There's a black metal group, which is the true cult. So there's a pretty much an ice cream stand for every flavor in the alliances. But
more or less,
if you want to just fast track your success. I don't know what fast track is.
I'm like, why? Where is he going to go with
If you want to be successful in getting your song reviewed, dear listener, it's the Moth, Death Angel, and
then you jump on the $75 tier, babe.
My mind is turned to mush.
It's turned to mush.
All right, let's just listen to this.
It's 3:35 in the morning right now, and we have to hit the gym like not very long from now.
Go.
Go.
was some thrashy thrash metal. I thought they were going to start out being a black metal band because the intro was kind of behemoth-y, you know, the open thing, and then but it quickly turned into a thrash metal song, which I like thrash metal. I like playing it, and I like listening to it. What did you think the song was about?
If I was to just guess without re-looking at the lyrics, it seemed to me like it was kind of a thing against God, and it talked about the communion, and then
break this bread, drink the wine.
Everything will be just fine. And you know, right there, take my heart, take my soul, spin my life out of control, break this bread, drink this wine, everything will be just fine. Like God is like, you know, taking their heart and their soul and then spinning all their life out of control, and not like, you know, there's people will say, well, I asked God to fix this, or I prayed about this and then it didn't happen, and like it seemed like when I started following God, like everything got worse, or you know what I mean, stuff like that. So kind of to me was that sort of a thing. And then everything will be just fine. It's that whole I don't know, like, you know, like religious people sometimes will just be like, oh yes, well, God's will be done, and
everything will be
like,
fine. Yeah,
everything's. You're like, well, that's not really a good answer.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I was struggling to see whether or not he was literally talking about God, or if he was talking about. There's a part of me that felt like maybe he's talking about the record label and his band. You know, we can burn together, and he talks about signing on the dotted line. And then you go down here and he says, you are the God that I defy. And then there was another one where I was like, here, I've been killed 1,000 times, my corpse was drawing flies until the resurrection of disorder.
Okay.
So, of course, it's art, so it can be interpreted in a multitude of different ways. But it looks like, you know, maybe it's talking about coming back from something. Maybe it's talking about, like, trying to come back through struggles in your life. And then overpowering it, and then it just keeps happening anyway. And so it's like, because if you think about it, this is sort of triumphalistic. I've been killed 1,000 times, my corpse is drawing flies, but then it says until the resurrection. Like, if you stop there, it's like, oh, he triumphed, and then it says of disorder.
You're like,
so
wait,
it's like,
no, it's not.
It's like, what's the point of coming out of all those bad times and all those many deaths if you're just going to be resurrected into another disordered situation?
Right.
Which is, I think the implication is you're inevitably going to die again. You know what I mean? So, which sometimes, I was having a conversation with somebody today, and they were talking about their life and how it just keeps happening and nothing ever goes well, and here it is again. It's this particular situation for this person, and I was like, well, I'm not sure that that's true. And then I put out other angles of the situation, and they're like, oh, okay. And that seemed to calm the person down, in the interim. But so I think sometimes, like, when you go through struggles and things like that, it can look like nothing is changing, or it looks like, you're kind of doomed to kind of repeat cycles of disorder and chaos. And there's some people that, by their own actions, bring chaos into their lives.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fact. Some people do that, but at the same time, it's like, like, for example, like growing up in the ghetto, like there are a lot of chaotic situations that I had no control. Dudes getting shot or whatever, like, you just can't control that stuff. And so my best friend at the time he was really kind of in that type of mindset. And when you get in that mindset, you kind of feel like this inevitability. But the song starts off with, surprise, I'm back again, the splinter under your skin, the one that makes you bleed forever. Been down 100 times, yet like the new sunrise, I shall return and we can burn together. So it's kind of the same thing with the resurrection thing, right? I've been down 100 times, and yet like the new sunrise, I return. It's like, if it just ended there, it would be very triumphalistic. But then it goes, and we can burn together, which I'm interpreting as a species of him saying, if I'm going down, you're going down with me. I've been down, and you try to get rid of me, but here I am, and so I'm going to set the whole thing on,
Yeah.
So, which is very, very smart writing, actually. And so, like, I remember when I was a little kid, like watching these cartoons, and the bad guy would be like, had that mentality, all right, if I'm going down, I'm taking everybody with me. And I always used to be so confused about that. Like, why would you do that instead of trying to escape?
Yeah.
Like, try to escape. Why are you trying to take everybody with you? But, of course, as you get older and life happens to you, you begin to realize that there's some people who are just like, look, man, this is never, ever going to change.
Yeah.
It's never going to change, and I'm always going to get the short end of the stick, and so that feeds into that mentality of, okay, then I'm going to set everything on fire. Which kind of was like me in the in the throes of my middle child syndrome.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's the whole burn the house down type of situation.
Oh.
Yeah.
Better survival, maybe, than still trying so hard to appease the gods.
No. Some of it was that, though. It really, really was. Like, it wasn't so much survival. It was like, I didn't care if I got in trouble. I didn't care if I got, a spanking or whatever. I just didn't care. You know. Like an unanswered prayer, this withered skin I wear will soon be shed as I emerge unbroken. That's a crazy line.
Yeah, it is.
Like an unanswered prayer, this withered skin I wear.
As I emerge unbroken.
Right. Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I was listening to Goggins at the gym. Surprise, surprise. He was talking about how you ultimately have to believe in yourself. He's like, if you believe in God, fine, but you ultimately have to believe in yourself, basically. Goggins believes in God. It's just his practical sort of theology is you've got to do it on your own. People aren't going to come up and help you. It's the whole God helps those who helps himself. And you kind of come to that point when you've prayed a bunch. Like, we're doing prayer right now in the Bible boogies. When you've prayed a bunch and nothing comes and there's no answer to your prayer, or you get an answer you don't like, or the person actually leaves, or they die, or whatever it is, you don't get the promotion. And I think sometimes people hit that like one too many times, and they end up saying, which, as a Christian, obviously, I always want to tell people, like, ultimately you should rely on God, but I do think that if you are going to give up on God, strengthening your own inner self to go and deal with life, I think is important.
Yeah.
And here's a hot take from me. Prayer is not designed to relieve you of all the problems in your life.
Nope.
Which a lot of people portray prayer that way. Like, they portray prayer as, hey, like, pray and you got a problem, God's going to come through and fix it. And a lot of times, the point of prayer is to have strength to endure what God has written for you.
Yeah.
But, try telling that to a bunch of spoiled Americans, which, it's probably unfair to say, because when you tell somebody whose mother's died of cancer they're a spoiled American. My point is that, life is extremely difficult for the vast majority of the world. And so, and when you've been around the world and you've seen things, it's kind of like the anger that people have to their unanswered prayers. Sometimes if you have that type of perspective, it puts things in a wider context than the person's able to see.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes, unanswered prayer is, obviously the unanswered prayer that leads to, like, the death of somebody or something, that's hurtful for obvious reasons. But then there's other times where, when you see your neighbor get his prayers answered and then yours don't get answered, then you feel like, okay, this is, it's obvious now God hates me. That's a lot of people come to that conclusion, even though it's not true. I remember in Sunday school, my Sunday school teacher she loved God, and she was such a sweet little lady, and she told us, we used to have these little envelopes that we would put our tithe in, and my parents' tithe was basically 10% of everything that you earned, you gave to the church. Like, that was like, and it wasn't something like, I know a lot of people looked at it as, oh, you have to give the church is asking for their money again. I didn't feel like that way, even as a child. Right. I was excited to give to the church. I was excited to take I couldn't wait to earn money so that way I could participate in giving for whatever needs the church had or whatever they were going to do with it. Like, I think at that point I thought that the church was unflawed and unmarred, and every penny that I gave was going to absolutely go where it needed to go, which it may have. I don't really know.
Well, your pastor, I mean, he's not living on...
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there's a vast difference. Like, if you walk into your standard evangelical church in Maine... Mm-hmm. 100 people. Mm. There's always some missionary pamphlet at the back, and somebody supporting some overseas missionary. Compassion International is huge, you know. But yeah, the whole giving away the money thing. But there's a lot of churches that connect giving away the money to answered prayer.
Well, that's where I was going with that. So my teacher had said, she told us all, she was like, take your envelope and put your tithe in it and hold it in between your hands like this. So we all did this. And then she was like, now pray for something. Pray with all of your heart for something. Yeah. And that thing is going to happen.
Yeah. And that's...
I actually feel a little bit emotional talking about it because I was like, well, I kind of thought that was a little bit weird that, like, I was like, wow, like, this is amazing. Like, that's all you need to do to get prayer answered. And, like, I remember praying for my neighbor. She was my friend, but she was a little bit older than me, and I was like probably like 12 and she was like 16, and she was hitting like that teenage year. She was starting to get into drugs, and I could see that she was putting her body on display for everybody for whatever reason she was doing it. And like I felt so bad for her, and I really, really wanted her to know who God was. And so I remember just holding that thing and praying and praying and praying, and then every week doing it. And like I really, really, really thought that like right away that was going to make some major change with her, and it didn't. And then like years passed and it didn't. And obviously, I matured in my thinking, and I realized that teacher was not correct. Like if God could be bought, everybody would be buying him out, like.
Well, that's what happens with a lot of these people when they talk about... That's why I'm very, very careful when I talk about this stuff. Try to be as biblical as possible, because, man, there's a lot of people that fall out on the back doors of these organizations or churches or theologies, refugees who have been deeply, deeply wounded.
Oh, yeah.
They believe they've been wounded by God. When in reality it's people who are already pretty much set for life. Like the craziest thing to me was the whole Paul and Jane Crouch, and pray for this and give your money and you'll get a cure. I see a cure for cancer. I see a cure for this. I see a cure for that. Da 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 da. And then when she got cancer, she wasn't sending off her millions. They took her millions and invested it in the best
care possible.
Oncologist money could buy.
Oh, yeah?
It's like, oh, okay. So So that's kind of the conundrum of that part where I'm like, on the one hand, obviously as a Christian, I'm completely relying on God, and I've been my entire life. And but on the other hand, if it's between that kind of religion and theology of prayer and self-reliance, I'd say go with self-reliance. Good night. So in a sense, he did something positive. He spun something positive out of a series of obviously unfortunate experiences. What do you give the song?
Jeez. You go first.
I give it a 9.1. I think this is one of those songs where lyrically it got carried. Sonically, back of shelves.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that aspect of things. I think that I would probably give it an 8.9.
Really?
Yeah. Cause I'm going lower than you because, believe it or not, I did kind of feel like it was kind of... But then there was some parts of it that I really enjoyed, so that's kind of what kind of bumped it up there. But the ending of that story, actually, I remember thinking, as I got older, I remember looking back at that situation and thinking, of all the prayers that were probably prayed in that room, like that seemed to be one of the purest of them all, you know what I mean? Like, who's gonna... I didn't ask for a bicycle, or it didn't even occur to me to ask for anything like that. It was like, absolutely, it's my neighbor. I want her to know who God is.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of years. But last I heard, she was like learning who God was and all of that. So it was like, I don't think that, I'm not subscribing to that theology that you
Well, no,
throw
I
your
think,
money and
I
God's
think
going to answer it. But
I'm certain your persistent prayers absolutely did something for sure. But, you know, obviously the context of the money and all that,
right.
you know, you gotta be careful with that.
You know,
stuff.
we had one. I think I told you this before. One of my Sunday school teachers, because you know they believe in the whole rapture thing. He had told us that God said that he wasn't going to die before the rapture happened.
Oh yeah. Is he still with us?
He's always holding on, but deal life.
You better get right.
That always helped me. I was always like, that's it, the rapture's gonna happen. I mean, look how old he is. It's right around the corner.
Did you give your
Huh?
Did you give your score?
I did. So,
all right.
Christine, we love you. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy your horses.
There you are. Vin out.
3 out.
Gone.